Hello, viewer, and welcome to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And we are always doing our very best to bring to you persons who are doing very helpful things to transform our communities in the direction of light. And we are happy on this edition of Spotlight to have with us Kaimuri Karauri, who is also known as Kuka, she says. And she is a mom, and she is also in training a journalist and also a counseling psychologist, and has been and is an entrepreneur. And she is the founder of Learning Differently, which is the focus of our conversation today, because she is an adult who is living with ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and also has gone through a journey with dyslexia. Now, that's a lot, but we are so happy to have Kuka here with us to share with us her story. Welcome to Hope TV. Welcome to this conversation. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you. I look forward to a really good conversation.
Thank you for being open and being vulnerable, and just coming here to share your story so that other people can be helpful, can be helped rather. And we really appreciate that. Have you always been open about your story, or has it been a recent boldness?
I've always been open about a lot of things. And as I discovered my journey with ADHD, I knew I was dyslexic when I was 19. Or I discovered dyslexia when I was 19, and I know it's a word I couldn't spell. But it dawned on me that I have ADHD just since September last year. I have, not the hyperactivity, but the symptoms that we'll probably be talking about.
That's interesting that one would think that you've known all your life about these conditions.
Yeah.
But there's a level of discovery that has come as recent as a few months ago, in your adulthood.
Imagine.
Now just for the sake of just knowing technically what is ADHD, what is dyslexia, can you just expound for us? And if possible, give us some real examples from your life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
ADHD is, a lot of people think it's that small boy who is hyper and will grow and outgrow it when they're adults. And that's how people have branded ADHD. And it's one of those things that people will expect you to grow out of. But the reality of it is that it's a brain communication dysfunction. And so a lot of the things you do are not under your control. And so in childhood, it will look like that hyper kid who is always putting up their hands, and they can't sit still, talking in class, easily distracted. And it is. But in adulthood, and especially when you're expected to take more responsibility, it changes. It becomes you're expecting yourself to have settled down and to do things easily, and to keep putting down a job, Let me give my personal example. I've had 17 jobs. 17 jobs. And I had to stop. I say 17 because some of them I put them down as clients, so that I don't, the number doesn't go higher than that. But I'm very convincing. If I come down and tell you I can do something, it's true. I know I can, because I can see the big picture about things. And that's what dyslexia does for me. I see a big picture of things, and when you get into a project, I buy into the project easily and can see the vision. And I know how to implement. Now the ADHD part comes in, and oh my goodness, the doing part does not communicate with the knowing part of my brain. And so unless I am really under pressure, almost like with a gun on my head, I can't deliver. So my adrenaline or my urgency has to be shot up for me to be able to deliver. So that's why I did my thesis proposal in a week. PRSK Awards, we did that, and I won. And guys had done it as group work for so long. I hyper-concentrated for a week, and I beat everyone. So some things came easy. People thought I'm sharp. I'm like, no, it was the deadline. I fear deadlines. And so there are a lot of things I do and can do, but not with regular, update me tomorrow, let's talk on the Monday meeting. When you have, my bosses are really mad, that's when I deliver. But when you come back as a person and the expectations that people have of you, what happens after that delivery is that people don't tell you, you sink into like a very serious depression. Now you go on a low. So people think I'm social, and really, I have to psych up for an event. If I have a wedding, I'm fretting a week before, I'm going to hang out with these people. But when I come to where you are, trust me, because I charged, I'll be the most fun person in the party.
Okay. Now, it's
That's
interesting
ADHD.
because, and we'll talk about that, because you're talking about ADHD, you're talking about dyslexia, and even as ADHD has a hyperactive component, you're talking about some introvertedness at the same time.
True.
Which is quite a complex. But Kaimuri, you can maybe tell us how you discovered or how you became self-aware in terms of these conditions. Did they happen at the same time? Did it happen gradually? Maybe how you came to know about these conditions that you have.
Okay, I'll brag first. I have a twin sister who is as calm as I am. And when we were growing up as children, really, we used to make jokes about a verse we saw in the Bible that, Moses was like a child like no other. We stopped there because we quickly noticed that we were that. We were hyper, we were happy.
Young is how young?
Like when the verse came, maybe when we were 8 or 9, and we joked about it, but we were always loud. I mean, my twin sister's report from always read singing and dancing at the wrong time, and us guys were thinking, there's nothing wrong, she's happy, If you saw my dad, you will know his nickname. My dad's nickname growing up means ADHD Kimeru. Keminsoro, it's that guy who's jumpy and pose and hyper. Keminsoro.
Okay.
And when he's around people, he's very social. But 90% of the time, the guy's thinking, Mazi, I hope I can just stay alone, Same happens to my twin sister and I. We are really happy around people. We are go-getters because we always see those big visions and we know things can be done. But when the things are done, we are so tired. We don't want to see anyone. So we didn't even think much of it. We just thought that gig made us tired. But being really conscious about it from the dyslexia part now, let me start with dyslexia because I love the gifts of dyslexia because we always told about the bad things that happen with dyslexia. When high school, primary school was easy for me because my teacher, Mrs. Kiagiri, I hope you don't mind that I mention her name, from Karauri Christian School, she noticed these kids are different and she taught us differently. We didn't know then, but now when I look back, I see it started with her. So it was easy to cope in primary school. And when we went to boarding school in class 5, we had already learned how to learn. So it wasn't easy to notice that we had dyslexia and we didn't, she gave us oral exams. We didn't notice, but she just did those things for us. Then we got to high school, life started. The teacher is dictating the abort and I'm thinking, oh my God, is this how we learn? And so high school was a blur. I loved high school for one thing. I went for all the funkies. I loved Mashairi and music festival. So that was awesome. But of course the grades were limited. But in Form 4, third term, when the teachers went on strike, I discovered, hey, but I can listen to what these guys have been learning for 4 years and probably get a grade that will allow me to go to uni. And that's what we did. That's how we survived. Well, my sister made it to university through the discussion groups. She got an A in home science. I got a B in home science. But most of the other grades were, so she went to uni. But I went to pre-university, which was my gift. And I met a lady called Dr. Onditi at Augustana College who she quickly discovered, she told me she could tell. And so she told me, if you don't mind, can I take you through a series of tests and probably tell you what's up with you? So that's when she told me, you have dyslexia. I'm like, I can't spell that word, man. I couldn't even pronounce it for a while. And that's when she took me she taught me how to learn as an adult. So I read fluently at 19 years. So I was so confident. After I went to university, walked to USIU, found the director called Dr. Gaskin. I told him, dude, you need people like me in your school. We see big things. Didn't understand that it was a big picture. I was just given the negative symptoms of dyslexia. Anyway, that's how I got into uni. Talked my way through DSTA also for my master's. I hope I can talk to someone about the PhD. But really, when I discovered how to learn, and I did a minor in psychology because there was no education psychology that taught me about learning disabilities. Did a master's in counseling psychology. Again, the deviant I am, my study was in learning disabilities. And that's when I discovered there was a need.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, just the whole dynamic there. Let's go back to your younger years as a teenager, and you were definitely very hyper, as you say,
You
you
think?
know, and you dancing and going for all the funkies and all
Yes.
that. And somehow you noticed that you were different from other learners or other teenagers. Was it that you saw yourself as better, or did you see others as did you see yourself like lesser, or did you see others as, I mean, totally slow? Because there could be several views to that.
When I hear concepts, I get and if I have the time to even be attentive for 5 minutes, I'll get it quickly. So I was wondering why these guys kept asking questions, especially in Fasihi. You know, Fasihi was awesome because there was a lot of political learning. Dad never bought me a storybook growing up. We read weekly reviews, you know. So when politics was improved, I was like, introduced, I was like, yeah, what these guys are not getting? I never thought I was different. I just knew textbooks bored me and I didn't try. But and nothing that was introduced, apart from a few comments on the teachers and being top 10 from the back, it didn't bother me. I mean, high school was hard for a lot of people. But then the grades, even the bad grades, didn't bother me. Let me be honest. I always knew what I
I think
wanted.
a lot of people do that positivity.
Yeah.
Where bad grades don't bother them.
Yeah. It was my coping mechanism.
Being
It was
top
my
from the
coping.
bottom, and
Yeah.
you're still optimistic, you know.
It didn't
a lot of
bother
people
me.
need that kind of perspective and worldview. Yeah.
When I said Ashairi for Moi with this voice, you can imagine. Who needed? Moi didn't look at my book, my report form, you know. So those things kept me going. We wrote
Yeah.
illegal school magazines and sold. I 14. So I bought most of my clothes from, I'll just take my 200 pocket money and trade. So those were the gifts I had. It didn't bother me that class wasn't awesome. It became apparent after graduating from university. So now when you get into the workspace, and I didn't know that ADHD was a negative thing until the work environment.
Well, we'll come to the workplace.
Yes.
I want us to stay a little bit with
On-
your high school
Yes.
experience, especially because of the esteem issues and because, especially as a young woman who is growing up, whether you felt at any one point your identity was maybe not as strong as those of the other teenagers around you?
Believe it or not, no. Two things. The best thing God ever gave me was a twin. So us guys were thinking, us guys are the same, these guys are different. So we always thought everyone else was different. And you remember that Moses verse? A child like no other. You know, we joked about it until we believed it. And so it didn't bother me. I didn't feel bad about grades because we were really popular. You know, we were the loud kids. We were the most active in CU and most active in drama. I mean, that's mixing oil and water. But we were those things. It was easy.
Okay.
It was easy. So, well, the grades I will feel bad, but after Dad has made noise about the report form, which is like for 2 minutes, holiday is normal, you know. So
it was you were just saying that everyone is different. Actually, everyone was
just
different.
thinking, these
and
guys are so different.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's now move to the place where you now know that you have dyslexia and you have ADHD, and here is the workplace. And you told us, Kuka, that the short form, the short number of jobs that you have moved out
yes,
from,
because the bulk
17,
are the bulk
17
are
jobs.
clients. I said they were my clients because I started a PR hustle.
But just tell us more about your workplace and your experience there and how the ADHD and the dyslexia worked out.
Dyslexia worked fantastic for work. The reason being that big picture image. When I worked in media and I worked in PR. When people brought concepts, I saw them. I could see how I could grow the concept. The ADHD, which I discovered, you know, I thought maybe I was just unwell. Let me give you an ideal way. I really believed in myself. You could already see. I mean, even when I got D's in high school, I'm like, what are these guys talking about? And I worked my way through uni, talked my way into admissions to school, let me be honest, because I did pre-university and a lot of things and had to do a lot of convincing even after I put in my application. So when I got to the workplace, when people shared an idea. I remember my first job was with an agency that was working with the now establishment of Brand Kenya. I was the intern working on Brand Kenya. I mean, it didn't bother me that I have to sit down with Vimal Shah and those all big shots and talk about these things, because I could see the big vision and we could discuss. But immediately we launched the first committee of whatever Brand Kenya guys were dealing with it. I was bored and I was out of the place. And what happened? I was working with a hyperness, and the understanding was clear because of dyslexia, and the hyper was the delivery was done because of ADHD. Then when you leave, boom, when the gig is done, you're tired, you're out. And so I quit a lot of jobs. I've done everything. I've planted churches. We were in all over. We danced. I mean, I look at the music industry today. I'm like, you guys, we were not paid for nothing. But it's the vision that Oscar shared. I could see what that would be in my head. Like even this interview, I told you I walked through it even before you came in. You know, so that vision was clear. But now, because I didn't know that it's the ADHD that causes me to get into a deep. I would feel so depressed, so tired. By the time I recoup, I'm out of job for 2 weeks. How do you even apologize that you didn't show up after such a big event? I remember working with one of my favorite employers, Michael Oyer, the best guy I've ever worked with under the sun. Michael gave me this gig. We did it for Rockefeller. We were happy. He was already even seeing how we were going to grow stuff. I disappeared on the guy. He saw me, like, what happened? Of course, he fired me. He was really mad. I called him like after 5 years. I'm like, Michael, now this is what I discovered, you know? But it was a lot of stuff. And so I have, because of how I learn through doing things. I have experience in a lot of things. So when I tell people I know a guy, I know. But now the consistency of staying, and I didn't know what that was. And now you can imagine the terms people describe you as, even when they read your CV, you know, you're a rolling stone that collects no moss. You need to be more disciplined. If you are not lazy, you will gain this. And those are now the branding that I started getting.
All right, let's stay with that branding.
Yes.
and the workplace, because it seems like the workplace is more geared for what you can call like a standard way of operating, and then persons who are gifted but they have to live with ADHD, for instance, are not exactly welcome in that space. And what would you say in terms of what you can say the employers need to know when it comes to persons living with ADHD?
Persons living with ADHD and learning disabilities. That big picture, you can imagine if you're working on strategies. Like, I think we are the guys who should have been in Vision 2030, because we see far. You see, you show me one thing and I can see where it can progress to. Those are really good gifts for strategy. And we know how, one of the gifts, especially for dyslexia, is that we know how to, I know that guy has that gift, I need it here. I know that guy has another gift. We know how to put together proper teams. And we know how to remind people the vision, because it's very clear in our head. Even if you don't write it, we can see it. But you see, all workplaces expect you to show up and do morning meetings and paper pushing, follow the client. What did the client say? I worked in sales. My sister employed me. I quit on her twice. Because when I walked in, she wants me to deal with daily clients to push bamboo. And I'm thinking, no, have you spoken to these big donors? Because my head is thinking, no, this project you're doing is so big, we need the big people, and I will work towards that. Probably take me 2 years to get a donor, and it will beat what we've been paper pushing for. And I wondered why people never understood, and I never got those opportunities. So it was very frustrating on my side. And I'll be like, so when people come and report and say that they spoke to 10 clients, and I'm thinking, I hate telephone conversations. I hate in-person conversations. You know, it didn't make sense.
So when you're at that, should at the point of entry, let's say it's the interview place, an employer notices that a potential employee has ADHD. Should they see that as a person to take on?
Yes.
Or should they see as a person? Because it seems like most of the times it looks like this person cannot be relied upon, you know, because of their fluctuations. What should be the constructive view from where you sit?
There are careers we work very well in. And for the life of me, I always wanted to work for the Red Cross. I hope Dr. is watching. And because if there's an emergency, we will operate in such a calm and sober manner. I'm never startled by anything. When even Uhuru Kenyatta showed up here, I'm like, hey, dude, you know, we are not startled. There are those things about our brains that we don't fear stuff. So if there's an emergency, I mean, the reason I wanted to be a journalist is because I thought, bomb blast happened when I was in Form 4, and I was thinking, wow, I could get a press card and go there and get stuff, you know, because it doesn't scare me. I want to solve the problem, and I do it calmly when people are panicking. So even Corona didn't scare me. It's not scaring me even now. I've seen the opportunities within the pandemic as well. So if people saw those things, places where you need emergency, when you have those bad clients who are screaming at you all the time, I'm the person you call in. Because the client will be okay, I'll pick what he wants to be delivered, and I'll just be working calmly even as they're screaming. I play with loud music on, and it doesn't bother me. I've gone to a club and slept, like we talk, you know. So if people saw those gifts and not the daily, because as guys, deadlines are really scary for us. Because we've been spoken down on for so long, you don't want to fail someone else. So when I tell you I'll bring something, I want to prove it to myself. Okay. So, and those are gifts that a person who can manage human resources well will probably tap on.
All right. And you've mentioned about some negative labeling. And you as a person, because when you were not conscious of what was going on, when you were younger, high school, teenager, you're good. But now here in your workplace, you are already a mature person. Yeah. And then you realize now there are these labels that are being placed on you. You're lazy, you are unreliable, you are inconsistent.
Yes.
I mean, you have no future maybe, you know. Now, how did that now, because you're a grown-up now, you're not a teenager now, you're a grown-up. So how did that affect your identity?
Yeah, I started thinking I'm not grown-up enough. Like, where did I miss the gap, you know? And that's when you start questioning yourself. You know, an amazing thing actually you've noticed, look at the guys Jesus used to hang out with. Show me one normal guy. There you go. So, you know, I spent a lot of time hating on me, and I discovered Christ loved people like me, you know? Because if you did not have the attitude of the disciples, there's no way that gospel would have been spread. I can tell you for free. They needed to be different. And then someone is forcing me to be a scribe and Pharisee. That's how I look at it. Even when I read my Bible, I'm like, me, I'm these guys. Me, I'm Peter. And I am Peter for real. So there was a lot of low self-esteem. And I can tell you, I spent a lot of times depressed. Like, and part of the reason, maybe, I can tell you, I got so anxious, I was on medication in 2018. Then I was like, no, but I know what the problem is. And they are treating me for anxiety alone, not what causes the anxiety, so come on. So I put my dawas in the toilet and flushed it and had a party. But I'm just saying, when you start hearing what the standards are, 7 steps of highly effective people, I will never achieve them. Or read 10 books a week to be a perfect CEO. I promise I will get an audiobook for that. You know, I can't. I really listen to audiobooks. Acceptance allows you to start now building coping mechanisms around you. And that's what I wish a lot of people could do, and not at 40. Okay. Because I did it at 40. I think I was listening to Lucas Marang. I love Lucas Maranga's what is it called, blog. And this guy resonates with me. So when I got to 40, I knew I had to check. And that's when I did all these things. So basically, the acceptance allows you now to say, okay, this is how I am, and this is how I cope. And now I know how to say no. There are jobs I say no to. There are clients I will never pick because I don't want to. But also having been put down for so long causes you to want to now solve problems. Okay. Now
you again discovered this or started now enhancing your life positively at 40.
Imagine.
And that's
after COVID,
it's been a long journey, right? And there's now that place where you are in, and you can say, I'm comfortable in this space now, living with ADHD. What are some of the prime things that you can say, especially for a person who is living with ADHD and they are wondering, how do I have maybe lost relationships, I have lost workplaces, and we're going to talk about relationships shortly. But what are some prime things you can say please, if you are dealing with ADHD, these are key things.
Oh, there are many. First of all, I don't want to make it to sound like it's easy. It's not been easy. Pastor Furi, you can imagine when you sit down and watch your peers, the guys you cleared school with, progressing in life. You know that you've niched in life when your high school friends sit down and have lunch and discuss how much you've niched. Now you know, ni kubaya. You know, and in your head you're telling yourself, it's okay, I'll wake up and move on. So when you compare people in top and middle class management, and you are here, hustle, in fact, people usually, so where are you now? Because they know, I have lived in 17 houses, I have held 17 jobs. I mean, every job, every house comes with, every job comes with a new house, and you move. It's kids that, by the way, my kids sobered me up, you know? And not really, we still move around. But, you know, that is a hard place when you're dealing. And I don't care how people try to say, oh, you coped. I am coping now. And it's because I have decided to consciously wake up in the morning and say, Kuka, I am mending my last 15 years. You know. However, now back to your question, which I have forgotten, and you'll probably have to repeat.
No, it's wait. I think let's take a short break.
Yes.
And then once we come back, you tell us some of the things that you'd want people with ADHD to know.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll also talk about how ADHD and dyslexia have affected your relationships.
Oh,
yeah, we'll talk about
stories,
that.
Yes.
We are talking to Kaimuri Karauri, also known as Kuka, who is the director of Learning Differently. And she's talking to us about her journey with ADHD and dyslexia. Stay with us. This is Spotlight. We welcome back. This is Spotlight, and we are talking to Kaimuri Karauri, and she is telling us about her journey with ADHD and dyslexia. And, you know, just before we went for the break, we're talking about you at 40 realizing that you have these conditions, and now you are doing your very best to, as we say, catch up, you know, with a new understanding and self-acceptance that now you have. And there could be somebody who is watching this program, and they are exactly where you are, right? And they're listening carefully because they want to know how they can pick up, you know, their life. And maybe you can give some very practical things that they can do towards that. Okay.
Dyslexia, I discovered at 19. I knew I had ADHD, but it's the textbook symptoms that we had. Hyper boy, again, who will probably outgrow it. Then you discover it sticks with you. And so when I was 40, that's when I discovered the negative symptoms of ADHD, and was aware that all these things I have done over time were as a result of this. And, you know, when you've had stuff like, you know, get your emotions out of it, grow up, and all those things. And you start thinking, by the way, I'm done with the problem. You remember, I grew up thinking, hey, other guys are different. So now you've been beaten up by society, and you know, even people need close to you because they can't understand. You know, I don't have a bandage that you can say, oops, don't hit her head, it has issues. No. So at 40, I'm a counseling psychologist, and we know we do counseling so that we can get to the root of the problem. I used to be opposed to coaching because I know I have this textbook approach to this is how we handle issues, and coaching now forced me to put practical that I would use to be able to cope. And that happened now in September last year. So when I quickly saw, oh, this is the textbook symptom, and this is the other thing. So when I went through coaching, I discovered one thing. I know I'm a visionary. I can deliver work, but because I can't do the paperwork, day-to-day paper pushing things, I need to work in a team. Because even when I started my own PR company, you think I worked with guys? It was me, one-man show. I pick up the phone, I send you that email, and I'll do the strategy for you. And because my brain races in many places, I will do a very inclusive strategy. Then I discovered people. And if you notice, guys like Richard Branson, you know, I need, in fact, before I tell you coping, when you're told about dyslexia, when I talk to kids, they are thinking, you know, it's because I can't learn and I need to be disciplined. It's not your fault. It's your brain that's like that. So giving you the positive symptoms about maybe dyslexia. Richard Branson, dyslexic. I mean, 40% of self-made billionaires in the US have dyslexia. And those are because their parents discovered that, hey, this child learns differently. Some of them are homeschooled, some of them quit school altogether. And I mean, Steve Jobs and the Microsoft, how can I forget Microsoft? Forgive me. But anyway, you know, those guys were self-built because they learned that they learned differently. And they discovered quickly that they are problem-solving kinds of guys. In the words of Jack Ma, if you want to make money, solve a problem in society. Don't even look about the money aspect. Look for a problem in society and solve it. Then the guys then the money will come in. So basically, you see guys who've made really big steps in lives. Well, that. The flip side is those kids who are crushed in school. Same America, 70% of the guys in juvenile are kids with learning disabilities and ADHD. Why? They are taught in a way that stamps them out of the system. So they use their racing brains to be creative in other ways. And so what happens? They wind up now getting into crime. Back home, then I can give you the coping mechanisms. Have you seen those kanges or guys, touts, who speak so eloquently, wondering, dude, what are you doing here? I talk to them because they are my tribe. You know, I relate. And they're like, what are you doing here?
You mean the ADHD tribe?
Yes, dyslexia. You can tell a really gifted guy, why is he just doing this? And you discover they couldn't do the written exams well. And those are things even we need to start pushing in terms of policy. Because they could read the exam to me like Mrs. Kiagiri did. My son had a teacher who read exams and he was number 2. When he reads the exam paper on his own, he's the last. Because when the teacher reads the question, the guy goes, oh, Najua, and he just starts writing. Because he knows. And then you can question, what is education? Education, is it just passing exams? Or is it equipping people with skills that will enable them to be effective in their lifetime?
Yeah, very, very insightful there. Because even you're bringing the dimension of now you and how you are engaging the learning system, because you're now conscious of it. And definitely coaching has put a lot of good in you. And I think I think it's important for us to hear from you, maybe a firing story, you know. I mean, now you can look back and just...
When I was fired, I'll say just so that I can also pace myself. I'll say how I was fired, and then I'll also go into, now, I didn't answer the other question, how I cope, learning to work with people and stuff like that. So now, I think that was my 7th job. I worked in an advertising agency, and we were doing a program for, it was a strategy event that we had, and I love strategy. I love strategy. So we had an event for a client, and my boss asked me to send a parcel. I can swear she told me to send the parcel to the office in Uganda. And I was my twin sister that because I was doing setup for the client. And like, send this to our regional office in Uganda. And it was a very important parcel. And it was just at the nick. I mean, it needed to get there. And you should have seen me running to send the parcel to Uganda and at Serena and went downtown to do that. So when I got to the office on Monday, you see, it's in the small details. Kuka, the Tanzanian office is saying that they did not get the parcel. What did you do with it? I'm like, I sent it to Uganda. And it's those small things, you don't quite see them. You remember, we see the big picture. So I was here taking a job that I can't see those details. And so, of course, she was like, it's been very frustrating, working with you. You don't give me your daily reports. And I'm like, ask for if you ask for those reports twice a year, I'll deliver. In my head, I didn't say that to her. And she fired me. Of course, the other places I left, I felt so bad. I'm like, oh my goodness. So now what happens if I'm fired at 25? how does my life start? So yes, I was fired, and it's because of those details. Another boss, another advertising agency, kicked me out because I sent a press release on what is it called? Letterhead. We had grey letterheads, and it had a small white spot as part of the printing problems. I didn't think that was anything. Oh my goodness, you send those press releases with all the, like, it's a small white dot. I didn't think that it would put a dent on their, what is it called, branding. She fired me. Then a week later, she's like, oh, but you are really good with media. Could you come back? I'm like, no, I moved on. I'm in Mombasa right now. You know, I move on quickly. And actually, I was in Mombasa for the school trip.
Yeah.
I mean, after you graduate in USA, you have to go for the course trip. Otherwise, you've not graduated, really. But I had already moved on, and I had already decided pushing applications for other places. And they're small things, I will never see them. But even if you put them there, I won't see them. Even if you circle in red and they're small. Because our brain thinks in a broad manner. So how do I cope? I learned that people are a resource. So if I want to work something, I know the big picture, so I work it backwards. Even that's how you learn. I work it backwards, and I say, okay, I want to do this, and these are the people I need. So now I start scouting, based on my affordability or lack of it, for people, so I know who exactly I can work with. And that has really helped me, even as I was developing learning differently. The team, we are a very lean team of 3 guys, and then we keep calling other guys to help us, it was specific. And we are managing I needed a guy who is in EdTech development. I needed a program manager because I'll be doing the big stuff. I don't know how to follow up. Even bank slips, I will lose them. I mean, you know. So those are the things. So I know that I can't do, and consciously again learn from Richard Branson is that if you can put together a team, yes, they will help you build the vision.
And the team does what you can.
What I can't. And that acceptance was very humbling.
Yeah. Let's see. I know that you've mentioned a little bit about parenting,
Yes.
but let's start with a marriage first. And I know that you have been married and your marriage ended up breaking. And can you maybe say something, a dimension of your ADHD and dyslexia that could have contributed to the complications in your marriage?
Complications from the very beginning, the relationship. I married someone I knew from university, and he's one of the sharpest guys. I wish he watches this, because he needs also to discover that his ADHD works. Very sharp. He was the president of the youth parliament at some point when it was very controversial, and came and sold me. He knew I was very political. I told you, Dad never bought me an exercise, a storybook. He brought weekly review on Fridays, and we read that for him. So because of that big picture and connectivity thing, and those are some of the things you get in, what is it called? With dyslexia. We connect things and interconnect. So I can interconnect my 31 years of political knowledge to the future, you know. Because of that, I'm very passionate about politics. So the guy comes with the bait. I mean, you know, let's do this political party. It was a youth party. He'd already started the party, and now we needed to. Remember, we were registering members in 24 counties. We didn't know that we could have registered like other parties from M-Pesa. So us guys went physically, and you see the youth energy and the big picture and the zeal. So the party complied, and we were going to vie, and you're saying, I'm building this because I think 15 years from now, there will be no political leader from the Kikuyu land that people can fall back on. He was going to work for that. I saw that vision, and I believed him. So, of course, as we were building the party, we got married quickly, because, again, I was pregnant. I had a child before I got married. And you see now what happens to relationships. I never date for long. Have you ever seen me with a boyfriend? You are my youth pastor. Never. So it was, you've come quickly, let's move on. And now that's the other thing, now with relationships. So I'm in a marriage. We are building a political party that we were hoping to sell to Uhuru, then TNA went before us, guys. Those things, ambitious youth. And then you're here, you're stuck, and then you're sticking the marriage, and then now politics is gone. You are left with this guy, and you're like, bah, who are you? You know. And also he's very intelligent, so there's no way he can be a Pharisee or a scribe. He's very intelligent. So you're thinking, now who is this guy? And then maybe I think I need a sober person. This one is too dramatic, because I'm dramatic. We don't need two of us in one place. And you quickly start feeling that you don't fit in the relationship. And we do not, that time you don't even have an awareness of what it is that you go through. And remember me, I have my ADHD hyper. Now we are on a low, and then the low looks like I'm cold. And or then I wake up one day, I'll be a submissive wife. I work, try to make things done. And I'm like, no, it's not the works that are working for me, man. I feel like the people who counseled me told me that I should be a dutiful wife. Duty doesn't work in marriage. So I was like, what? So anyway, as I joke about it, because now I healed, I say I walked through marriage, was married for only 2 years. And so even for relationships, now I am conscious about what I bring in, the good, the bad, the ugly, the whole combination.
And you know, when thanks for sharing that, being vulnerable about it. Now, there are people who may right now be living with this condition of ADHD, and they may want to know how that affects their marriage relationship, their family life. Or maybe a person who is married to a person with ADHD and they are finding the whole thing very complicated. I mean, what would you say to those kinds of circumstances?
When you see a person with ADHD, for most places, I mean, a lot of people will be probably, that chick will be attracted to me because they're thinking, that chick is hyper. She's loud, she's fun. It presents itself as fun in front of people. Then on the back end, it is, let me explain what I probably call my own ADHD cycle. It's that you have a goal and you keep pushing the deadline. When the deadline comes, your body system hypes. I mean, hypes the anxiety. That anxiety causes you to deliver. It's what people call hyperfocus. And it doesn't just happen like that. Sometimes, if there are things I'm really interested in, I can really concentrate in, and I'll do them. Now, in marriage, you have to balance finances. You have to balance the children. The time you spend with the husband, the mother-in-law, the cousin who is, and my dad is unwell, and my mom is, that's noise. And so it creates that anxiety over a long time, and you feel like you don't belong enough. So even how you relate to other people, you're already now coming here, again, with the labels that I got after of you're not consistent. If you did this, this will work. If you did this, this will work. Are you good with money? Or, so and even maybe similar to what even happened in the workplace, you're fearing that your secret will be found out. That I am not all those good things that you thought I was. So I'm here, I don't have all those good things. And unfortunately, by the way, I don't know how to cope with them. Because again, it's my brain. It's not a discipline issue. It's the brain communication issue that's not working. So how then do you start coping? Self-acceptance. I said, I'll start a marriage counseling program. It's not duty, it's acceptance. So when you accept yourself and communicate who you really are, when you're aware, and that's why I say be aware of who you are, communicate that. If someone can take that, because marriage is about, by the acceptance and compromise. It's not all those other things you are told, by the way, no, even if you eat githeri every day. Not put lasagna, but dim the candles. That's side shows. Those are side shows. I even made Brazilian food during World Cup, and I am divorced. Fury. Duty. Self-acceptance. Back to then communicate that. If someone can live, I'm dating now, and that's kind of communication I'll probably. No, not if I'm dating. I would prefer to start dating now. Sorry, but now with the awareness, if I'm dating now, I want to communicate that that this is me. Take the package,
so that it's you're accepted as you are,
and I can communicate clearly because I'm aware. I didn't know who I was when I was getting married, and I got married late. I was way after 30. So really.
Not so late, but
well,
but still,
given the standards then, I mean, 24 would have been ideal,
And again, staying with relationships, let's go to the parent. You as a parent, you made a reference to your child who also seems to have ADHD, and has a learning complexity.
Yes.
So how would you speak to parents so that if they are raising children with dyslexia or ADHD, how do they best bring them bring them up?
Don't label them. The first thing, in fact, like, for this one, I'm looking at the camera now direct. Don't label your kids. And let them know by the way they have dyslexia or ADHD. But not the negative things of you're lazy, you don't know how to read. No, but they know how to learn. Look at the gift that child has. So when you know what ails your child and you accept it, and no, but it's not a bad thing, it is a gift. I won't lie. If anyone, I was trying to see a doctor once, I told him, if you're making me normal, please don't give me the medicine. I just want, if I have other things like something's wrong with my legs and ears, but if you're fixing my ADHD and dyslexia, I have learned to cope. There are really, really good things about dyslexia and ADHD. That big picture image, we are kinder. Do you know why we are kind and more sensitive to others? It's because we have been put down for so long, so we are sensitive not to be that person. And so don't label your child. Let your child be kind. Let them care about music. Let them use videos. My son beatboxes. And I was just saying, I know now I'll be putting the lyrics to his beatbox so that we can memorize the 47 counties. Let's do those rap songs. That's how he learns. I teach him. He goes to regular school where he gets beaten up every day because he cannot copy notes to his paper because he's reading a letter at a time. Why are we copying notes and we have textbooks? And even textbooks, he won't even read the textbooks. So every time he comes home, I ask him, dude, what did you learn today? Tells me we learned about, let's watch a video about it. He remembers the video. So the guy, when we open an exam, I'm the kind of parent, if you're going to admit me in your school, we never do holiday homework. He'll go to Meru, learn how to harvest termites. So we say he's an organic termite hunter. That's 200 Gs per acre. This guy already has a career. Can you see? He learned. Those were skills that were done by very old people. He knows how to follow those termites until your house is saved. That's a skill. So let him learn those. When you open an exam, he'll get 29% in Kiswahili. Closing exam, 90%. And because he'll come and we will review. I read books to your kids if they can't read well, you know, because they will learn the language by hearing, not reading. So work it backwards. If you're going, so that's what I do too. When you're revising for Kiswahili, I read the questions and then I talk through those topics. If you're doing Gelis, we talk through the topics. He remembers the conversation, not what he read. And that's how he learns. So does he know Swahili? Yes. So, and those are the things. So don't label your child. And then, I won't lie, God is so fair, he balances us out. A lot of children with learning disability or any disability are so gifted in other ways. And so those are the gifts you look at. And so the sister moves on. She just absorbs information. There's a time she was out of school for like a month and she went and she was number 1. You know, those are dynamics you deal with. But this guy like, but I failed, I got a 170. Just 70, in one course, he had a 70. The rest were 80s and 90s. How is that not a sharp boy? He's brilliant. But if we tell him to copy notes and make him kneel down and put his hands up, you are killing his very spirit. Yeah. So, and I say, teachers do this again. Maybe I give you a statistic. 80% of our primary school teachers have not been to university. So they didn't do well in school. They went and they went to teachers training colleges and they didn't do well in school. They were the struggling kids who are coming back to treat the kids in our classes the way they were treated. So when will the cycle end? We are killing those creative spirits. And teachers do this because they don't know and they're expected to keep the mean grades high.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that many parents would want to know, and you have hinted at it, is that their children can have an excellent, successful,
Life.
Brilliant life.
Yes. And should. So I have been doing coaching as part of, again, another thing you asked me about coping. I picked groups, but also I discovered I need to be mentored. So I pick a team well, but also, I thank God for, what's it called? Accelerator program called METIS. So they force us to implement our ideas. And even the mentors you get, and the steps they use to just guide you on how to implement has worked. So one of the things that I'm testing now is coaching for children. Because, and every time I have a session with the kids, I ask them what they love about their learning disability. They have no good thing to say. And that's when I remove my whole scroll. I'm like, you don't know Richard Branson. You don't know who this Whoopi Goldberg, Tom Cruise. These guys do great things. Those guys cram scripts. But probably someone, George Bush, my favorite example. I mean, the reason he used to pose and guys called him dumb is because he used to listen to his speech on the ear. And I loved when I discovered that. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's awesome. Let's use technology. So you listen to the speech and repeat. So you used to take longer pauses to listen to this guy on the earpiece. Did he cope? I mean, people looked down on him and he did 2 terms. So those are the guys, you know, Abraham Lincoln, those crashed guys. And those are the things your kids can be. So coaching, mentoring, those things work.
Okay.
So that you know. So let people do what you can't.
All right.
Yes.
And I think you're already talking about some of the things that learning differently is already doing. An inspiration that has come out of your own personal experience.
Suffering.
You can say more about learning differently and some of the programs that you're doing there.
Learning differently should have started 20 years ago, but I love that God uses timing. You know, when we speed up things, you discover. So I've always wanted to work with intervention of learning disabilities. Because, again, as I asked you earlier, we all know the symptoms of corona. So if I got the symptoms of corona and I stayed home and said, now this disease is really bothering me, and never got medication, what will happen to me? So awareness is one thing, intervention is the other. And I said, well, testing is a very complex thing in the world because there are levels, it's a multifaceted way of testing for learning disabilities. And I agree. So I say, fine, you've seen these symptoms, chances are that you are really struggling in this area. So I want to teach teachers and caregivers and parents about the real symptoms of the learning disabilities. We're doing a free course. Not just the symptoms, because you'll get them online. We'll show you the textbook symptoms and the behavioral symptoms, I mean, the things that the person is going through, so that you're empathetic to that child. And then we are giving you some tips on how to accommodate, make home and school inclusive to kids. And I'm saying home because you can imagine your brother calling you dumb, or we thought you were sharp, now what's happening to you in life now? You know, those are really things that put someone down for a very long time. So those were the things we are putting in place. It's a free course. A second, now if people want to understand the technical part of it, that would be paid up because I've really researched for 20 years. We'll be also but an affordable course on now how to teach properly. Using that funnel method, immersion method of teaching, multisensory teaching, all those, how can we combine those things into a lesson? So that you know how to teach as a teacher and as a parent. Then the third part of it, there are 4 facets. So there's the free course for knowledge and coping. There's that one for really teaching. And then the third one is that we are creating a resource. Teachers are, by the way, we complain about teachers. Teachers have a lot of work. And again, based on my 17 jobs, I did a research as one of those field things with teachers, and I discovered their biggest problem is the time to prepare, not the intention to prepare. So if I put together a resource, an inclusive resource, that would be fun, that make class inclusive and also fun for even other normal learning kids. And then kids learn. So the teachers can pay, it will be a subscription basis, and pay and get resources that can help them have inclusive classes. So that's a lot we are developing over time. I mean, these are things we're talking about like 20 years from now. I say, now we are finally done with 2 countries in Africa. But my hope is for Africa.
Okay.
And then the last one is that has been necessitated by this is coaching the children. Let them know that they are gifted and this is how they learn.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a great initiative.
Thank you.
Learning differently. And one may wonder, how do I access, or how do I get to learning differently?
So I'm being coached right now. We are delivering the first, we are recording the free class on Monday. The free, what is it called? Yeah, it's a course on Monday. But as part of my coaching process, we are launching in October during Learning Disabilities Month.
Okay.
So that we are going to do a whole campaign just to create that awareness. And I hope more people can just come, just to get even the information.
Okay.
So that will be really ready in October. Learning Disabilities Month we are rolling out.
Okay.
But I'm doing coaching sessions.
All right.
One-on-one.
Okay.
We book appointments, and I can do that. And yes.
All right. Finally, the description in ADHD, the last word means disorder. There's a disorder. And you're a faith person. You are a woman of faith, and you believe in God. So how does your faith in God and your identity as a child of God, stay in shape even with this disorder aspect?
I told you earlier, those disciples were different. Everybody in that Bible was different. The only person who was constant, I'm like, I can't cope, is Daniel. Daniel was too perfect. But the rest of the guys, man, I look at David, I'm like, dude. In fact, I can't wait to see these guys in heaven. I'm like, man, you should have done. You kept me going because you were different. And God wants to see us or us to know that even in those differences, He's God. And I can tell you part of the reasons I really say that there are people who have really, really extensive symptoms of ADHD that don't allow them to cope in the normal world.
Okay.
Medication is there. But for me, because I already discovered and I knew, anxiety is caused when I get to this place, I opted to, and I pray a lot, not for my life to be changed, but when I feel bad about it, I know where I get my comfort from.
Okay. Right.
And that for me has worked. I mean, I became a Christian at 8 years. Well, most imperfect Christian, and I love that I am like those guys in the Bible. But really, that's where who's got your back. That's why. So I never asked God why. It was, yay, let's do this.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, I love the fact that through it all you find your anchor and your excitement about your wholeness in God. Kuka, thank you so much for being on Spotlight. And I'm sure that many people have listened to this and are encouraged and have got an insight about how to live a normal life, even as they go through experience of ADHD and also dyslexia. And all the best as you go on with the initiative of learning differently.
Thank you.
Viewer, we've been talking to Kaimuri Karauri, and she's been talking to us about her journey with ADHD and dyslexia. And one thing comes out clearly, that even with these complex conditions, there is still a full life, an abundant life for you. Focus on that abundance. It is present. God is going to make it possible. This has been Spotlight. Thank you for watching.